I let my husband think the silence meant acceptance. When Evan told me he'd invited his mother to live with us permanently, I didn't say a word. I just nodded and went back to folding laundry. He smiled like he'd won something, like my silence was surrender. It wasn't. His mother, Marjorie, had hated me since our wedding day. She whispered to Evan that I trapped him, that I wasn't good enough for her golden boy. For 7 years, she made comments about my cooking, my career, my body, my inability to give her grandchildren. The infertility wasn't my fault. The doctors said it was Evan, but Marjorie refused to believe her perfect son could be the problem, so I became the villain. When Evan told me she was moving in, I had already found the emails. 3 weeks earlier, I'd seen a notification pop up on his laptop from Marjorie. The subject line made me freeze. The plan? I opened it. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through months of messages between my husband and his mother. They'd been strategizing. Marjorie would move in, make my life unbearable, document everything I did wrong. Then Evan would file for divorce and claim I was mentally unstable. Marjorie had already found a lawyer. They'd been planning this for 8 months. The worst part was what Marjorie wrote in one email. Once she's gone, you can finally marry someone who can actually give me grandchildren. Evan replied with a thumbs up emoji. 7 years of marriage. Exposed as a long con. I didn't confront him. I didn't cry. I just started planning. The silence lasted 2 weeks. Marjorie moved into our guest room and immediately started her campaign. She criticized everything, moved my things without asking, told Evan I was cold to her when he wasn't looking. I smiled through all of it. Evan started working late, coming home smelling like perfume. I pretended not to notice. Marjorie would smirk at me across the dinner table like she was winning. She had no idea. On week 3, I told Evan I needed to visit my sister for a few days. Family emergency. He barely looked up from his phone. Marjorie practically pushed me out the door. I didn't go to my sister's. I went to my lawyer, the one I'd hired 6 weeks ago, the one who'd been preparing everything while I played the quiet wife. I came back 4 days later to an empty house. Evan was at work. Marjorie was at her book club. I walked through every room one last time. Then I started loading boxes into the moving truck I'd rented. I took everything that was mine, which was a lot. The house was in my name. My parents had gifted us the down payment, and my lawyer made sure the paperwork reflected that. I also took the dog. Biscuit was mine before the marriage. When Evan came home that night, he found Marjorie sitting alone in a half-empty house. I know this because my lawyer called me 2 hours later laughing. Evan had called him by mistake, meant to call his mother's lawyer, left a voicemail screaming about theft and abandonment. My lawyer sent him the divorce papers the next morning, along with printed copies of every email between him and Marjorie, along with photos of him with his coworker at a hotel 3 towns over. The private investigator I hired was worth every penny. Evan called me 47 times that first day. I answered on the 48th. He was crying, begging, saying Marjorie manipulated him, that he never meant any of it. I stayed silent. He kept talking, kept making excuses, kept saying we could work through this. Finally, I spoke. One sentence. My silence was never acceptance, Evan. It was preparation. I hung up. The divorce finalized 3 months later. I got the house, the savings, and alimony. Evan got his mother. She moved back in with him after his apartment lease fell through. Last I heard, they weren't speaking anymore. Apparently, Marjorie blames him for botching the plan. I sent her a thank you card for the emails she never thought to delete, for underestimating the quiet woman folding laundry. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the loudest thing in the room.